Am I allowed to charge premium rates if this feels easy to me? Do you
Ooh.
feel guilty charging premium rates because the work feels just really easy to you? I mean, that mindset has kept us, me, trapped, many of us, for so long, and it forces you to undercharge and constantly overdeliver just to try and justify your price tag. So today we're going to tackle the doubts surrounding your internal value so you can finally get paid for your expertise rather than pushing your payday further down the road.
This sounds excellent. But first, I want to welcome everybody to season 3 of the Productivity Podcast. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
It's really fascinating. In season 2, if I can just give a quick recap, what we did, we unpacked the hidden ways that doubt, overthinking, messy systems, and unclear messaging quietly drains your business of momentum, right? We unpacked so much in season 2. In season 3, we're going deeper. And we're going to walk through a structured 4 pillar journey to help conscientious founders like you rebuild their worth, your worth, visibility, execution, and strategic clarity, one chapter at a time. And you didn't work this hard and gain this much experience and overcome this many challenges to just spend your best years second guessing yourself. I know I didn't. So the truth is that hidden doubts, unconscious habits, and small daily decisions quietly rob you of your golden era, that life that you want, that you're working so hard for, while charging this relentless doubt tax on your time, energy, and your income. And so join us and tune in to season 3 as we continue identifying those hidden costs, give you practical ways to reclaim the momentum, freedom, and fulfillment that you have worked so hard to create. Yes.
Yeah. So it's so exciting. Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for your time as always. I love talking about this stuff with you. And today we're going to dive into one of the really quiet insecurities that most of us have, but we're terrified of talking about. And
Yes.
that is your relationship with your own value and money, right?
Oh,
We think
big deal.
that if we charge a lot, then we're somehow pretending to be something we're not, you know?
Mhm.
And so we think that we ought not to be charging that much because, well, this stuff's way too easy. So we're going to go through this process because when we deal with this stuff first, it doesn't matter how visible you are. It doesn't matter how loud you're talking on, if you're on every podcast going, or if you've got all sorts of other stuff going on in your business, it really doesn't matter. Because
Mhm.
if that fundamental self worth isn't absolutely concrete and you fully believe in what you're doing, then it doesn't really matter because your business, you'll probably end up building a business you don't actually like. You might even turn into somebody you don't like while you're doing it. So it's really important that we get this
Yeah.
stuff sorted out first.
Yes, absolutely. And I have not come across anyone who has not at some point in time in their life, in their business, struggled with this.
Oh
We
yeah.
all go through it. We all go through it.
Yeah.
And that's the key words. Through it. We're
Yes.
not stuck
Yeah.
in it. But we think we are, but we're
Hmm.
not. We can get through it to the other side to where we actually are living that fulfilled, peaceful life in harmony, you know, with our beliefs about, abundance and fulfillment and, developing products and services that serve people the way we want to serve them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when we see something as being easy, we don't see its value. So
Hmm.
we think that other people wouldn't see its value either.
Right.
And then we put that reflection on ourselves as well, we're not worthy if we're delivering this stuff that's super easy to us.
Yeah.
But, you know, um, it was really interesting to me. I learned this because I was talking with a friend who has a multi-million dollar business, and he was doing podcast trainings and various different trainings. And I would create like a quick graphic that would just summarize everything that he'd said. And he was like, wow, this is amazing. I really need you to do this for me. If I paid you, would you do it? I was like, yeah. Why would I not do that? I'm like, this is incredibly easy. But he told me how much he wanted to pay me for each of these graphics. And it was probably 4 or 5 times what I would have charged. I was like, that's ridiculous. How on earth would anybody pay that much? But my brain worked in a completely different way to his. And so I was filtering all of this information down into a few different bullet points and going, if you're here, then you need this. If you're here, then you need that. And he was just like, he was blown away by it. So I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I know I can do stuff that feels easy and fun to me, and I can
Yes.
actually earn a reasonable wage from it.
Yes. Absolutely. And this comes, I study this from a different perspective than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I've studied this is, the way that our societies and communities are built is that most of us, especially here in the US, are taught that you have to work hard, sacrifice, struggle
Oh, yeah.
to get even the littlest iota of
Mm-hmm.
anything, and then you don't deserve it anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or we get there, and so I set a goal. What ends up happening is that I set a good goal for myself, a well-defined outcome, and it's like, okay, I'm going to work hard for it. I'm going to get it. And then we get that goal, and then we stay there for 2.3 seconds, and we're like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
We don't give ourselves the chance to really appreciate all of the resources, all of our effort, all of our skills, training, ability, resources, etc., that went into achieving that goal. We don't honor it. So there's no fun. So you want to know why you get stuck in procrastination? Because we never allow ourselves to appreciate what we've accomplished.
No.
Because we know that it goes by so fast. So it's like we reach this pinnacle and it's like a caffeine shot, it's like you go zzz, bang,
Yeah.
And if that's how we treat our goals, if that's how we treat ourselves with in terms of money, and things like this, it's like, no, why would we put ourselves at the risk of such beratement? I'm not finding the right word, but really that's where we judge ourselves so harshly and
Yeah.
criticize ourselves so deeply,
Yeah.
that it takes all the fun out of it. And I'm in this to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and well, I'm sure you have spent a lot of years, you know, doing the exact thing, putting in the hard yards and really trying your best every single day just to fight your way to 1 inch of progress. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, but now there's all this to do. It's
Mm.
like there's such a relief of getting there. And then it's
Yeah.
immediately followed by, oh no, there's just so much more left.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's it's really important to look back and see how what you have learned is valuable to other people. And it can be really difficult to do that, especially when, maybe you've spent 10, 20, 30 years in an industry learning what you've learned, or maybe it's just experience in life of different industries that you've built up over time. And it's just the way your brain has worked for so long that you don't even know it's happening, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like, well, how am I supposed to see that? If I, you know, and price it accordingly.
Yes.
And I think I remember working with a lady probably, oh, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now. And
Hmm.
she'd moved to a new country actually. She'd moved from England to Wales. I know it's not very far, but it is a totally different country. And
We
she
forget
was,
that over here. At least I do.
yeah. So she had moved to Wales and she didn't know anybody in this community. And she was a personal trainer and she wanted to start getting to know the ladies in her community. And she wanted to build a gym on her property and have people come to classes and do all this stuff. And so she wanted to really help people with strength training and kind of re educate women about strength training and how it can help them in later life. So she didn't see the value in what she was doing because she thought, well, I'm just a personal trainer. You know, she had this label on herself that she believed that's all she was. And then, you know, every personal trainer has got the same qualifications, give or take a few, you know, so they've all got the same information, they're all sharing the same knowledge. And she couldn't see what made her different. She couldn't see her expertise because she'd been doing it for so long before then, you
Mm,
know. So she moved to this new community going, well, nobody's going to pay me, you know, loads of money to come to my property and train on my gym that doesn't cost me a thing, you know. And so eventually we broke it down, and I said, okay, what are the steps these ladies need to go through in order to achieve what you're asking them to achieve, or the results that they want, or whatever it is. And so we broke it down step by step, and I said to her, if they were to pay you for each of these individual steps, how much would you charge them? And so, you know, figures were given, and I can't even remember what they were now, so I'm not going to guess. Let's say they were $50, right? It wouldn't have been dollars because it was Wales, so it would have been pounds, but, you know, minor details. So let's say there was 5 steps in this process, and and she was charging $50 for each of those steps. That's
hmm
$250 for the whole thing. So, oh well, I can't charge that much. No, but you were going to charge $50 for the whole thing.
mm,
Now you can see that actually what you're teaching and what you're helping people achieve is worth $250. And whether you charge that or not is entirely up to you. Maybe you discount it. Maybe you give the first 5 people for $150, you know,
right.
or $200, or whatever it is. Where you go from there is entirely up to you. But when you build up the value in your own self about what you're teaching and how you help people get there, then all of a sudden that permission is a moot point. You know, you don't need permission to charge what you want to charge for your business. It's your business.
Right. And we get stuck in this trap constantly as entrepreneurs. Comparison and competition,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, we're comparing, watermelons to grapes, or something like that.
Yeah.
And we refuse to acknowledge our own individual uniqueness and expertise, and assign a value to that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no competition, you're the only one, you're the only you. Everybody else is taken, so
Yeah.
you can't be anybody else. And so, one of my things I do is I create art. And it's like if I were to try to compete with any other artist or whatever, I'd never feel good about anything that I created. But instead, when I allow myself to create what it is that I create, I can appreciate it for what it is. And I can assign a value to that. I love this example, if I may, real quick, too, is that how much would you pay for a piece of paper, just a regular piece of paper that had a sketch of a mouse with big ears and a skinny tail waving at you? You know, it would be the cost of a piece of paper, 0.001 cents, and the cost of the lead from the pencil,
Mm-hmm.
or the graphite from the pencil, you know. I mean, what's that worth? 2 cents?
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at the signature, Walt Disney. Now all of a sudden it's $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? And so we don't judge accurately. We don't assess accurately when it comes to ourselves. I'm great at putting, maybe I'm not great at putting value on other people's stuff.
No, it's
But
always
when
easier.
yeah,
It's always easier.
but I have to look at, well, why don't I want to charge, you know, several $1,000s for one of my paintings? I remember the first time I put a $5,000 price tag on one of my paintings. I'm like, nobody's going to sell that. But somebody bought another painting for $2,500,
Nice.
and so
Yeah.
that type of thing. So it's like, well, it's not I can assign a value, and what people receive is always far greater than what I charge, because I know that when I pay for something, I'm usually, most of the time, if not always, getting far more in value than I am for the cost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's probably not exactly what we're talking about, but it kind of is. Go with me on this. So we were having a conversation a few months ago, and you were talking about chocolate, right? That's one of your big things. And you said, totally off the cuff, don't chew the chocolate.
Yes.
And I was like, what is he talking about? How are you supposed to eat it if you don't chew it? And I tried it. I was like, wow, I'm actually tasting this stuff. And that completely changed my whole view of chocolate. And that was so simple to you because you've been doing it for decades.
Yes.
You
Yes.
probably learned that, I don't know how long ago, but it's just common sense to you.
Right.
So it's
And
it's really interesting how other people, when they don't know what you know,
right.
value what you have to say.
And this because I was having a conversation with one of my clients this morning, and she's new to having a coach, and I was very cognizant of what I call not bringing the dump truck to the conversation.
Okay, you need to
And what
explain
I
that
mean,
to me, I think.
yeah, so what it's like we say this like because I have this history of experience behind me,
Hmm.
loaded up in my dump truck, and
Okay.
then I come and have one conversation and unload the whole thing on somebody, and they're like, it's great info, but I don't know what to do with any of it."
Yeah.
And so that's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to myself. So I was like, okay, we're just going to do one little piece at a time, make sure that, and me being very cognizant that I may be sharing information that this person is not acclimated to or accustomed to or aware of. And
Yeah.
this person had several breakthroughs in the conversation. So I've never heard that before. And to me, I've been hearing it for 30 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so being aware, being gentle, right? And just presenting it in a way that if the person was aware of it, fantastic, we could have a different conversation. But since the person wasn't aware of it, we had a different conversation
Hmm.
in a way that built a foundation, right? So having that awareness that what I know may not be what you know, and I take it completely for granted. If I'm not aware of that, then I debilitate my ability to be truly of service to somebody.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, It's it's the assumptions that we make about other people.
Yes.
It's the assumptions we make about what they know and how much they're willing to pay.
Yeah.
And it's always based on it's always coming through the lens of what we've learned and what we
Yes.
expect to pay and what we would pay.
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know and so it's really interesting when you say take away all of those expectations.
Yeah.
I like to say to people, all of my clients, I say to them, assume nothing, explain everything,
Yes. Yes.
because you cannot assume that somebody understands what you're talking about. And I think that's why so many people, solo business owners particularly, get lost. They kind of fall through the cracks because every single person who's teaching business always has these assumptions that something that you don't, you know? So if you're learning copywriting, then they'll assume that you understand what copywriting is in the first place. And it's like, hang on a minute, I've never heard that phrase before. And they've moved on 10 steps, and you're still thinking, well, hang on a minute, what's he talking about now? Because your internal mind has been questioning it and going, well, what's this? And well,
Yeah.
I should know this. And oh my God, I don't know it. What's going to happen to me now? And by the time you
Right.
finish that conversation, you're completely lost. you know,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting that we make these assumptions that are actually harming our business. And when it comes to pricing, there's nothing worse than assuming that people won't pay
Right. Right.
more than what we believe it's worth, because
Yeah.
our perception of that value and their perception of that value is totally different.
Yeah. It's just like going back to the literal cost of something as opposed to its perceived value.
Hmm.
And I've had several businesses that were product-based businesses where I needed materials to create something in order to
Hmm.
sell it. And for example, and then I was just only charging like, well, you're only supposed to charge, 15% more than the cost. And it's like, where did I get that stupid idea from? From somebody, I got it from somewhere, but
Yeah.
that forced that business not to last very long because I wasn't charging enough to cover any of my expenses nor make a profit. Because I
Yeah.
thought, well, I can't charge more than 15% of the cost of this because who would pay for that? Because they know what blah blah blah. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. And,
ugh,
I've seen it
horrible.
time and time again with,
Yeah,
especially in the fitness industry, personal trainers in particular, and therapists and people like
yeah.
that. They always look at what everybody else is charging and they kind of go somewhere in the middle.
Right,
Oh,
right.
the
And
hourly
it's
rate is always somewhere in the middle.
yeah, yeah, no.
It's
You
like,
know,
go
there's a certain feeling that you get when you charge a fee that is far beyond your comprehension of what that product or service is worth. I remember, the first time that someone said, I need to quadruple my coaching fees.
on. Hmm.
And that was several years ago. And I'm like, I can't possibly charge $1,000. Who's going to pay 1,000? And then I got somebody that paid $3,000.
Nice.
And
It's the,
so
yeah.
my conceptions have to be shattered in order for me to be able to realize that there aren't any darn rules.
No, and this is it, it's your business.
Yeah,
They're your rules. You can make and break them whenever you like.
yeah.
You just have to be happy with what you're doing.
Well, see,
And
that's the thing right there because when I am undercharging, I am unhappy, resentful, second guessing,
yeah,
unfulfilled,
yeah,
blah blah blah, and not enjoying.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, my other half is a landscaper, and he's come home so many times and said, "Oh, I priced up for this job that I was expecting it to be really quick, and then he's found a lump of concrete under the ground that then he has to break up by hand, and or is come some complicated issue, And it's this, it's when you're undercharging, you don't account for those hidden costs or those hidden
Right,
those unexpected problems. And it's
right.
exactly the same. I did it a few years ago now with a lady, and now I have a spreadsheet. Okay, I know it sounds a bit geeky, but hey, that's the way my brain works. um Somebody wanted me to do a website build for them. Okay. So I have a spreadsheet that breaks down each of the elements of that build. So
Hmm.
how many emails do they need? How many pages do they need? How many graphics do they need? All of this, and I itemize them out per cost, right? Just
Right.
like I said to this lady before, that example that I gave before. And so it came out at some huge figure. And I was like, there's no way I can charge that. So I basically halved it. And I shouldn't have. I really shouldn't have, because
Yeah.
the project has gone on way longer than either of us were expecting. There was complications in the middle, there were, all
Mm,
this kind of stuff. And now I'm like, I can't get this project off my desk. Like it was still there like a year later. I'm just like, yeah, I really need to get this project off my desk.
yeah. Wow. Wow. And I keep thinking back to this one experience I had where, I don't know if you know this or not, but I used to build and perform with marionette puppets,
Oh, I
life
think you told me
size.
that before. Yeah,
Yeah, life size marionette puppets. So they're about 3 or 4 feet tall
cool.
and, big marionettes. Yeah. And so somebody wanted me to build one for them. And this is way back in the 1980s, the late 1980s. So, and they were like, how much are you going to charge for this, and whatever. And I was agonizing over how much to charge for this. Well, it's only going to cost me like, $30 in materials, but my time, my energy, my expertise, blah, 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 that's worth something. So I charged them $500 for this marionette. And they're like, okay. And you know what happened afterwards? It's like, oh, I should have charged them more. And I
Yeah,
felt bad that I didn't charge, right? So it's like,
yeah.
but it's interesting the gyrations that we go through. And again, I study this at a little different level where I look at the beliefs that are involved in this. So what is the belief? What are the values that are telling me that I can't?
Hmm.
What are these? Because until I learn how to change those beliefs, I'm not going to change.
No.
Because I can change a little bit like stretching a rubber band, but if that underlying belief doesn't change, that rubber band's going to go right back to where it was and will
Yeah,
never go beyond what it's capable of. So I have to change that underlying belief. Have to.
yeah. And I have found, it's just my experience, but I have found that the fastest way to change beliefs is to find proof.
Yeah, sure.
So that's why individually itemizing pricing for every single result that you're creating within that overall framework creates such a huge belief change, because by the time you get to the end of it, you can see just how many things that you're including in this one product that you're offering or service that you're offering. And you know just how much it's going to take effort wise for them to get there, for you to
Yeah.
help them get there if you're doing the coaching, you know. And so by the time you see that total value at the other end, when you've added it all up,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I am charging too little, maybe I do need to charge more. And it's quite instant, you know.
Right. Right.
So I am going to challenge all of our lovely listeners, watching people, viewers, that's the word, to take one product or service that you currently charge for and think about the result that you're selling. Okay. And break that result down into all of its steps and then give each of those steps a price.
Hmm.
And let's just see if the price that you end up with when you've added all of those things together is anywhere near the price that you're currently charging, and if it changes your opinion on what you ought to be charging for it.
Yep. That's brilliant. Do that homework.
Yeah, do it.
Do it.
And comment below when you've done it, because we want to know.
Yes,
We
please.
really want to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to share that with us. You got to share it with us. Please.
Cool.
Excellent. This is a great way to kick off season 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to dive more into the strategy of the potent productivity method and the pillars and the foundations of everything that we're doing and we're talking about in this podcast, then you can do that. You can get my book, Stop Doing It All. Typically, I put it back on the shelf. There we are. You can get a free copy of that when you go to potentproductivitypodcast.com. It's part of what I call the primer. So you get the book, you get the workbook, you get a 5-day email sequence to help you move forward from wherever you're stuck. And you'll also get a link to the doubt tax calculator so you can see exactly how much hesitation, procrastivity, and overwhelm and second
Yes.
guessing and all of that stuff is costing you in your business right now. So you can go to potentproductivitypodcast.com to get that.
Excellent. Excellent.
Cool. What's your biggest takeaway from today, Robert?
Um, I guess the unfair presumptions about what I charge for my products and services,
Mm-hmm.
and giving myself permission to change them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it is well, it's two things really. One, assume nothing, explain everything,
Yeah.
and two, itemize cost and value, so that when you come to do your pricing, then you've got a very good sense of what your value is. So there you go.
Lovely. Excellent.
Awesome.
Until then, we'll see you next week. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.
Welcome to the Potent Productivity Podcast, where we pull back the curtain and dive into the real emotional journeys behind entrepreneurship. We're your hosts, Sarah
And Robert. And we know that building a business isn't just about crushing your to-do list or chasing overnight success. It's about navigating the ups and downs and unexpected turns that come with following your passion.
We're not here to sell you easy wins or rehearse the same tired success stories you've heard 1,000 times. We're here to talk about the moments when enthusiasm is buried beneath a mountain of tasks, when self-doubt creeps in, and when you're not sure where your road leads next.
So each week, we'll share raw conversations, real lessons, and practical strategies to help you reconnect with your creativity, build resilience, and rediscover what excited you about your business in the first place.
If you're ready for honest talk, community, and actionable inspiration, you're in the right place. Let's get real. Let's reclaim your potent productivity together.